How much do you value your time? How much do you dislike unnecessary stress? How much do you value your energy? Well, what if I told you that you could waste time, energy, and take on excess stress all at once? I present to you probably one of the most pointless, time-wasting, energy-sucking, stress-inducing activities you can do: watch sports. How many viral clips of people have you seen online losing their minds and composure over this stuff? The irrational attachment to such things is mind-boggling to say the least. From the overly emotional or attached fan to the armchair manager, it has the populace in a vice like no other form of media has. Let me explain my backstory, my relationship with regards to watching sports and supporting teams and so on. Like most of you, it all started from a young age, as a kid. It was a cool thing to do: support a football team, act like you were more into it than you actually were, talk about these games like they actually mattered and that your opinion did also. I'd buy the shirts of my favourite team at the time and watch every single game like my life depended on it. Be ecstatic with the wins, depressed with the losses. You'd come into school the following day, and it would be absolute carnage, you arguing and beefing your fellow schoolmates about the result. Looking back, it was pretty childish, and you still see that even till this day. Most people haven't grown out of it either. I would always go into school with my signature Arsenal scarf, like it was some sort of battle scar or memento, more so an open wound at the time if anything, so everyone knew who my team was. This continued for many years until slowly but surely, I began to fall out of love with the whole notion of it. And what sealed these thoughts into reality were actually some wise words from someone much older than myself that my dad knew. This individual once upon a time was a massive football fan. I don't recall the team he supported, or whether it was an international team, but long story short, watching his team ruled his life. And during a particular tournament, at the very final, his team lost, and it was almost like his world had ended. He went on to say how he was severely depressed for the next 6 days following that, but at the very end had an epiphany. Why should something you have no control, influence, or real investment in influence your life in such a way? The result of a factor as such has no bearing on your life whatsoever, and this has been the core of my stance since. It may be an extreme example, but even if you take away the depression aspect, I think it takes away more time than it's actually worth. Let me break it down for you. When you support something, typically, it would have some sort of significant bearing on your life. You may have invested into such a thing in order to gain something in return, physically, or monetarily, or so forth. Perhaps you have a direct link to such a thing. For example, if we were to use the football team example, perhaps you played or know someone personally who played for such a team. Perhaps you had monetarily invested in such a team in a significant way where your contribution is of substantial value. But in reality, what are most people doing? You support an arbitrary team that you have no association to whatsoever. You may not even live in the same local area as this team, and support one halfway across the country. You don't play for this team, never have, or never will. Neither do you know anyone personally who has either. You haven't invested any significant amount into this team either, where their success impacts you directly. Yet you still dedicate your time, energy and brain power towards them like it brings you anything in return. You'd sit in front of your TV multiple times a week in order to watch this team and perhaps others because you're that invested, and will yell, complain and pretend to strategize like your opinion or insight matters or holds any weight to anyone. I'm not sure how anyone could just see it like it is and think to themselves how stupid it is. Seems like a mental disorder to me. a useless pastime to numb you from the realities of the real world. Now you may be asking, fair enough, watching something as such may be a waste of time, but what about other forms of entertainment? Surely they're just as bad, if not worse, right? Well, you may be true to some extent, but not quite. Let's break it down. For starters, let's look at a common favourite, video games. While it may technically still be a waste of time, I'd still class it above watching something like football. With games, you have the element of direct interaction. You're actually doing something, potentially achieving something, competing with other people. It may be meaningless in the grand scheme of things, but it's still you doing those things. Furthermore, a video game lets you do something that is fictional. You can experience various things from behind a screen that you may simply not be able to do in real life. With these sorts of sports, however, you can. And that's another point against watching it. Imagine if all the hours spent watching and gossiping about it were spent playing it instead. Food for thought right there. Even with movies and TV shows, these aren't far off from football in terms of time wasting. But at the very least, you can see things or learn things that you simply can't in real life. And once the film's over, that's it, unlike football, where it continues perpetually, season after season after season. It's for the reasons mentioned prior that till this day, I haven't ever looked back at watching sports like football again, and I haven't come across a single convincing argument that refutes the points I just made. All the time we waste watching things as such, and indulging in pointless entertainment, could easily be directed elsewhere, into endeavours more productive. Improving your life and the lives of others around you, spending more time with people in person, rather than a screen, learning something of use or value. Essentially directing all this energy to address real issues in the world and not drain it away watching sports as a coping mechanism. And just as a disclaimer, I'm not here to say that I'm perfect and I have it all figured out. I've escaped the allure of watching such things, but we all still have our crutches, whatever else they may be. If you like the video, please leave a like and subscribe if you can. I'll be making more going forward. Specifically, interesting issues or thoughts many guys may have going forward in life, and a retrospective take on such topics, and perhaps depart on some wisdom for the younger ones of you out there.